purpose do you rise?
Madam President, I rise for unanimous consent to make a statement.
The senator asks unanimous consent to make a statement. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Please, Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to the members. Today I rise to speak on an amendment that I filed related to how Milton is handled in regards to the MBTA Communities Act. Today's presentation, I will lay out how Milton is being subjected to an inaccurate and undeniable misclassification. Milton is not seeking to carve itself out from being subjected to the MBTA Communities Act. In fact, we have a 10% zoning plan in the works, which would satisfy the 10% that adjacent community designation communities have. And I want to show you as well today that there is a history going back decades where Milton has contributed in an outsized way to the MBTA communities, and we are seeking a resolution for our designation, our classification in the MBTA Communities Act, because what is being asked of the town and through its implemented regulations, we know from experience that if left unchecked, what is asked of Milton will continue to be an outsized role given our level of service and what we have within our borders and nearby. This is about fairness, and it's about consistency. Anyone paying attention to the implementation of the MBTA Communities Act knows there's been some controversy, to say the least. I acknowledge that at times the rhetoric has gotten quite ugly. This has been an incredibly divisive issue for my community of Milton, and my remarks here today in this presentation are done in an effort to be constructive and hopefully assist in reaching a resolution in the near future. I have a duty to and want to make sure that Milton is treated fairly under the law and in the processes that are laid out in the law's regulations and guidelines. And we need to make sure that as I share this presentation with you, I'm going to share some of what's transpired over the last couple of years and decades, and issues that I think are relevant in making sure that we're treated fairly as we work. Again, Milton is not a zero here. We're trying to get to at least 10% as we speak, and I think that's been lost in some of the rhetoric, some of the coverage that has taken place in the traditional media, social media, and so forth. I don't think it'll come to any surprise to anyone in this room that there's context matters, that there's probably more to the story than you've heard about. And I'll do my best to clear some things up today and provide for you some details to consider. As I mentioned, Milton is not now and was not before a zero when it comes to participating in transit-oriented zoning for the MBTA Communities Act. Voters in Milton, as part of an extension of town meeting, did in fact reject a local zoning plan in February of 2024. This action, a Democratic action, was to reject the zoning plan that was on the table. It was an up or down vote. It was not an outright rejection of participating in the MBTA Communities Act. In fact, the Milton Planning Board has an updated local plan, and it's in HLC's hands as of Monday. This plan is in HLC's hands to do the pre-vetting process as the Planning Board finishes its work on that plan and as it goes to town meeting in the middle of June. So what do we do have? How do we get to 10%? Milton has proximity to commuter rail service. There are 3 stations across the border in Boston, in Hyde Park, Mattapan, Dorchester. I have a map here someplace. Here we go. This is the Neponset River through the middle of the map. That's roughly the border between Milton and Boston. We have Quincy up here. An easy way to explain what we're talking about is the statute, an excerpt from the statute here, which is the MBTA Communities Act. And this says that we'll have a zoning ordinance or a bylaw that provides at least one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. And the key factor here, one of the key factors here today I want to press upon you, this clause here, that zone be located not more than 0.5 miles from a commuter rail station, subway station, bus station, or ferry terminal. So, and it's if applicable. So we have commuter rail access here. We've got Reeville Station, Blue Hill, and Fairmont. And these proximity to Milton is 0.4 miles. So we have that radius, and just to point out where we are on the map, we have Quincy here with 4 red line stations. There's 3 depicted on the map, and the terminus of the red line at Ashmont Station. So the town is interested in this 10% plan. It's on the table, as I mentioned. And so why haven't we been able to reach consensus on a local zoning plan? Why have you heard so much about Milton's struggle to get along? I get the question all the time. And the answer is, whoa, we're gonna lose that one. Fix that real quick. The answer is found in this list. So I get the question from colleagues, from constituents in other parts of the district. And why can't Milton get in line? Chances are, if we were included in the designation that most of the other communities are included in, you would have never heard of this issue. We are one of 12 communities in the rapid transit designation. So an easier way to understand this is, if you're in rapid transit, you're asked to use a 25% multiplier for your existing housing stock in town. Commuter rail is asked to multiply at 15%. Adjacent communities, 10% of their existing housing stock. This is relevant to Milton because on this map, the difference between being a commuter rail community and an adjacent community is often the fact of where the commuter rail lies. Does it lie within your borders or just outside your borders, but within that half-mile radius? So we have commuter rail within 0.4 miles, and the town has developed a plan that anchors to those stations to come into compliance. So why are we still here, and why am I talking about this? Because the phrase subway station also appears in the clause. We have the Mattapan high-speed line in Milton, and this car from the 1940s, which is still in service today. There are 8 left. 4 or 5 are in service. It holds 130 people. That's an asterisk next to the 130 because that's 1930s and 40s bodies. It certainly doesn't hold 130 Driscolls on the trolley at one time. But for the sake of using real numbers that are verifiable, you can carry 130 people on the Mattapan high-speed line in this vehicle that's still in use from the 1940s. So this line is depicted here with the orange line. There are 4 stations in Milton, and they connect to the terminus of the red line at Ashmont. So if you've ever been on this, you know that in order to take the red line to Mattapan or from Mattapan into Boston, you have to disembark at Ashmont Station. So if you pick this up at Milton Station and you wanted to go to downtown Boston, you would ride the trolley to Ashmont. You'd have to get off, walk a distance, walk downstairs into Ashmont Station, wait for a red line, get on that red line, and go into town. So it's not a contiguous trip. That's a very, very important factor as I continue to detail what we do have for service. This list of communities, when it was first in draft form, and it's been changed a couple of times, there were 5 communities that were downgraded from subway service or light rail, the predecessors to the rapid transit category. And there were 35 downgraded when they removed the bus category, and 30 additional were downgraded when then it was added adjacent small town category, which is not on my list, but represents the makeup of the 177 towns that the MBTA Communities Act affects. One of the reasons that, again, context for why Milton has sought to be reclassified is over the years, we've we've been very engaged. We were one of the original communities, inner core communities of the predecessor of the MBTA and now the MBTA. And communities that have MBTA service are assessed a fee. So each community pays into the service, pays for services in their town, and be able to link into it. And this is relevant. This is the 2 stations along the Mattapan high-speed line. You can see its basic structure. There's a shelter, not much to speak of. This is Milton Station. This, I believe, is Valley Road Station in Milton. Again, basic shelter. It's at street grade level. Next door in Quincy, you have Wollaston Station. I believe that's Quincy Adams. Quite a difference in terms of infrastructure. Milton, within its borders, has the Mattapan trolley service and bus line service. Within Quincy's borders, they actually have all 4 modalities: bus service, subway in the red line, commuter rail, and ferry service. The assessment that Milton pays each year right now at FY25 as part of an MBTA community local assessment, $2.1 million. Quincy's assessment is $2.5 million. They have all 4 modalities, 4 red line stations. Quincy's a great place. I spend a lot of time in Quincy. I spend a lot of money in Quincy. Great restaurants, great amenities. We love Quincy. But I use this to demonstrate that there is an imbalance here, that the Mattapan high-speed line, the connection to Asmont Station, is undeniably being miscategorized. And not only are we paying a higher assessment, we're being asked to do a higher number of zoned units. We're one of only 12 communities that's being asked to do a 25% plan and pass it locally. So this, again, is the context for why I'm standing up here today. To talk about the differences of the vehicles across the lines and how Milton is being treated. We have some demonstrations. So I mentioned the capacity of the Mattapan high-speed line. Cars, 130 people with the asterisk, again, built for 1940 humans. As Fenway Park has expanded over the years, you've noticed that when they put in new seats, they're not putting in those same original seats. There's a lot more space. So you built it today, it wouldn't accommodate. Red line car, 167 passengers. Green line, 212 capacity. Commuter rail, 179. And bus service, crush capacity at 77. So this is, right now, I want to impart upon you. The Mattapan high-speed line is ranked equivalent to the red line, and it is ranked higher than commuter rail. So you're telling me that 6 cars on a red line is equivalent to a single car of Mattapan high-speed line trolley service. You're telling me that a single 130 passenger trolley in Mattapan is ranked higher than 800 seats on commuter rail. Understand some context in terms of why we've been trying to work through this with HLC to find a plan forward. One of the issues that we continue to see is this designation of a subway and being considered heavy rail. This branding is divorced from reality, and even it's recognized by the MBTA itself. The Mattapan Trolley and the Red Line are administered by 2 separate managers. The Red Line is managed by the Executive Director of the Heavy Rail Operations. And in 2024, the MBTA appointed its first ever Executive Director of Light Rail to oversee operations of the Green Line and the Mattapan Trolley, with the director noting that light rail is a unique system compared to the rest of the MBTA. So how about the rail cars in terms of the Green Line? Single car, 130 passengers. Double car is over 400 passengers are available. So on Monday, I looked at the transit tracker just before 9 a.m. On the Mattapan high-speed line, there were 2 trolleys active and in service. So roughly 260 passenger capacity available at that time. Across the entire Green Line, there were 100 cars roughly active. That's a difference of 260 person capacity on the Mattapan high-speed line and over 21,000 passenger capacity across the Green Line active at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I looked this morning and there were 106 cars at 9 a.m. on the Green Line service. So I will start to wrap up and make the point as well that our existing laws in the MGL actually already lay out that the Mattapan high-speed line is not rapid transit. It is not rapid transit as is categorized in the regulations that have been put forth under the MBTA Communities Act. MGL 161A, one of the enabling clauses of the MBTA, mentions rapid transit, and then it mentions the Mattapan line in the same sentence, clearly drawing a distinction between the two types of services. And I stand here today again pointing out one car is being treated as equivalent to 6. One car, the Mattapan high-speed line, is being treated as more than 6 of those commuter rail cars that would hold 800 passengers on a trip. The MBTA Communities Act is something that provides in its regulations as well the opportunity if a town, if a municipality has multiple modalities of transit. If you have both a commuter rail proximity and a subway proximity, as is described for Milton by HLC, and the regs that allows you, the municipality, to choose which modality you anchor your plan to in zoning. So the answer is already here on the table in front of us. Milton has put forward a 10% zoning plan. HLC, there's the regulatory authority. They could deem today that Milton is an adjacent community and/or allow them to file that 10% plan that is now in their hands being vetted. It may need some tweaks, but the point is that Milton's not a zero on this issue. We are not trying to carve ourselves out of it. We are, in fact, participating for decades, paying into the system, and we are eager to get this behind us because we also know we need to be reclassified because the language here, this half-mile radius between the subway station and the modalities has appeared at least 3 times by my count in the last couple of years and other proposals and pieces of legislation that have passed the legislature. So my concern is that we are not moved out of this classification and moved into a more appropriate space. If we stay at that highest tier designation as a rapid transit community, if we continue to be one of the only 12 communities that's being asked to do 25% because we have a 1940s streetcar that holds 130 people, and that's considered more than a commuter rail, we are always going to be asked to do an outsized number going forward. Whether it's this administration, the administration afterwards, my colleagues in this room producing a housing production plan or further zoning changes, we're going to continue to have this issue of finding a reasonable path forward if Milton stays as a rapid transit community. There's a 10% plan on the table. My amendment here today was written so that the Mattapan line could not be considered in Mass General Law either rapid transit or as a subway, but rather an intermediate modality. Again, recognizing that we are paying in FY25 $2.1 million into the system, and we use that system. We're not denying that. But we want to make sure that Milton's service, whether it's for zoning or for that issue of the assessments, which is a topic for another day in depth, as this law and these regs and these guidelines are put forward, we need to be treated fairly, consistently under the law and under the processes and regulations that we pass here and that are implemented by whatever administration is in that corner office. In closing, I'm withdrawing this amendment today because further discussions are needed with my colleagues in this room, my local colleagues in government in Milton with HLC and the administration. Milton is currently processing that plan with HLC. In fact, before I came down to talk, we were on a call with HLC working through particulars of certain parcels in town for the planning board's meeting tonight, and I commend their work to try and find a way forward that's reasonable and consistent with the laws and the regulations. So this is an undeniable misclassification. It's an inaccurate characterization of the service that we have. Again, we're not seeking to carve ourselves out of this. We want to be treated fairly in this mix of 177 communities. I don't think after today you can say we have the same level of service as the other rapid transit communities. And it would be just a mistake to let this to continue so that we're asked to do an outsized number of units. You know, some comparisons for communities that are in the adjacent, one within my own district in Easton, 913 units as an adjacent community. Milton's plan right now on the table being vetted by HLC has 1,007 units. And so we are trying to do our part to be a part of this. In Canton, right next door, not part of my district, but an adjacent community, there are roughly 1,400 units that they're being asked. Again, Milton's number as a rapid transit community is about 2,600 units to zone, just to give you a sense of a round number on the scale that we're talking about. So give us a chance to come in as an adjacent community, to participate. There's a path forward here within that regulatory structure where HLC could say, you can link, you can anchor to commuter rail, be considered an adjacent community. We have that plan on our table, and if Milton was made an adjacent community today in short order by the middle of June, that plan could be adopted at representative town meeting in Milton, and we could move on and handle other matters related to the housing crisis and developing transit-oriented housing. So I thank you for your time and attention in this matter. I appreciate the way that you've welcomed me to the Senate. It's an honor to be here representing Milton and my district, getting to know bipartisan colleagues that share parts of the district, whether it's on the House of Representatives where I came from, or now with you as one of 40 in the Senate. Thank you for the welcome. There's a lot of work to be done ahead. I look forward to supporting your local initiatives, your statewide initiatives. I might need your help on this at a future date, so thanks for listening, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.